Welcome back to the channel, folks. Today we've got a story that's straight out of a wild, chaotic rom-com, except there's way more chaos than comedy. This tale comes from Nathan, a 42-year-old American who thought he'd found paradise in the Philippines, happily married with 2 kids, living the dream, right? But let's just say that even paradise has its storms, and when trouble hits, it doesn't just knock politely. It bulldozes its way in, leaving destruction in its wake. Do listen carefully, because this one's got family drama, police calls, and a twist that'll make you question why anyone thinks blending families is ever a good idea. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Nathan. I'm 42 years old, and while I'd love to tell you where I live, what I do for work, and share all those juicy personal details, I can't. There's a big reason for that. I promise you'll find out if you stick around until the end. I can tell you this, I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I've made mistakes, big ones, and I own them. I wear them like battle scars. I'm not proud of them, but I'm sharing my story because I want people to learn from my stupidity. Trust me, you don't want to repeat my mistakes. But before I get too serious, and believe me, serious isn't my usual vibe, let's rewind to the start. Back in the pre-COVID days, I packed my bags and moved to the Philippines. Why? A mix of reasons. First, I was approaching middle age, and let's face it, the dating scene in the US is a dumpster fire. The average American woman is, let's be honest, high maintenance. They want everything, but offer what? Vague promises? Overpriced brunch dates? Spare me. Sorry, ladies, no offense, but also, sorry not sorry. Second, living in the Philippines is cheap. The cost of living is nearly 70% lower than in the US. For example, without rent, a single person's estimated monthly costs are just about $544. A family of 4? Around $1,883. Compare that to the States, where a family of 4 practically needs to sell a kidney just to afford groceries. Why wouldn't I take the opportunity to live well for less? Oh, and let's not forget the job opportunities. My occupation offered me better prospects here than back home. Before I even boarded the plane, I'd already secured a job at a company's main headquarters in Davao City. Interviews and contracts all done remotely. I was ready to hit the ground running. When I landed in Davao City, I jumped right into work. It was a fresh start in every sense of the word. By day, I was busy with my job, learning the ropes, meeting colleagues, and doing what I do best. But by night, that's when the fun began. Davao City is a commercial hub, but it's not all business. The city is alive with culture, energy, and an undeniable charm. The streets are vibrant, the food is mouth-watering, and the people, warm, friendly, and always ready to share a laugh. Now, I only had time to explore at night after my shifts, but that didn't stop me from soaking it all in. I strolled through the lively streets, tried local dishes at street vendors, and struck up conversations with anyone who'd indulge me. And let me tell you, Davao isn't just about Filipinos. You'll find people from all over the world here, blending cultures like it's a potluck dinner. Of course, I wasn't all about the quiet exploration. Davao's nightlife called to me, and I answered like a man who hadn't had a vacation in years. Bars, nightclubs, and music that vibrates in your chest, I dove right in. The first few weeks were a blur of drinks, laughter, and, well, let's just say some memorable hotel stays. The women were gorgeous, confident, and refreshingly different from what I was used to back in the States. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't naive. Friends and colleagues had warned me about the country's scam culture, especially when it came to women. Bar girls, go-go bar girls, women who'd see your wallet before your face. I kept that advice in mind while still making the most of my nights. I'd pick the places close to my hotel first. Touristy spots with plenty of action, but relatively safe. And yes, I indulged. Drinks, lady drinks, conversations that went nowhere, and a few that went somewhere. I let myself loose, enjoying the kind of freedom that only comes when you're single, unattached, and living in a new country. But here's the thing about nightlife. After a while, it gets old. The same loud music, the same smoky bars, the same small talk with strangers. Human nature kicks in, and you start craving something deeper. That's when I met her, my first Filipino girlfriend. Now, I can't share her name. Giving her a fake one feels wrong because, despite everything, I still hold her dear. No, I'm not still in love with her, but I do respect her. At least I did before she messed it all up. So let's just call her my first girlfriend. She wasn't like the women I'd meet in the bars. She was warm, genuine, and had this way of making you feel like the only man in the room. We met at a cafe one evening, completely by chance. She wasn't dressed up or trying to catch anyone's attention. She was just herself. At the time, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. She wasn't just beautiful. She was practical, down to earth, and had a sense of humor that could rival mine. We started dating, and for the first time in months, I found myself spending less time at bars and more time getting to know someone on a deeper level. It felt good, like I'd finally found what I was looking for. But as you'll soon find out, good things don't always last. She worked at a call center not far from my office, making a fairly decent income. Not extravagant, but enough to support herself and send money back to her mother in the village. Her two sisters were married and out of the picture. So the responsibility of caring for their mother fell squarely on my shoulders. I admired that about her, the way she handled her duties without complaint, balancing work and family like a pro. She wasn't the modern, career-oriented woman you'd expect from someone living in a city for years. She openly admitted she'd leave her job in a heartbeat if a guy offered her a secure future. No qualms about settling down, having kids, and being a housewife, as long as the guy wasn't a walking disaster. Honestly, that was exactly what I was looking for. Someone practical and grounded. Not someone obsessed with climbing corporate ladders or snapping photos of overpriced avocado toast. We hit it off almost instantly. Our relationship wasn't the whirlwind, over-the-top kind. It was simple, fun, and peaceful. After a long work week, we'd find time for a movie or a cozy dinner. Sometimes we'd just stay at my place for a quiet night in. Netflix, takeout, and the kind of easy companionship that doesn't need constant excitement. She had this way of making me feel at ease, like I could let my guard down. I can't even explain it, but I'll say this. She wasn't like the others. She wasn't trying to impress me with grand gestures or fake charm. She was just real. I fell for her, hard. So much so that we decided to take things a step further and move in together. Things started off great. She continued working at the call center, but I knew her boss and colleagues were giving her a hard time. It wasn't long before I suggested she quit and start giving her a monthly allowance. It wasn't a huge sum, but it was enough for her to cover her expenses and save a little. She was grateful, and I was happy to make her life easier. She was deeply devoted to her mother, but to my surprise, she kept her mom out of our relationship. She's too noisy and aggressive, she once told me. Apparently her mother had been through a nasty marriage that had left her bitter. I didn't press the issue. I figured she knew her family dynamics better than I did. Now here's the thing. I've never been a big believer in marriage. To me, it's just a legal trap for men. You get bound to one person, lose half your assets in a divorce, and for what? I made it clear to my girlfriend from the start that I wasn't interested in getting married, and she seemed okay with that. Then, about a year into our relationship, she dropped the bomb, or more accurately, the missile. She was pregnant. Now, I wasn't shocked, let's be real. We were living together, and it's not like we were holding back in the bedroom. But it wasn't exactly part of my plan either. I had just gotten comfortable with my new job and life in the Philippines, and suddenly, I was going to be a father? Still, I didn't let my doubts show. I put on a happy face and supported her. As the due date approached, I went through the usual mix of emotions. Excitement, fear, confusion. You name it, I felt it. Here's where things started to go off the rails. She quit her job, which was understandable, given the pregnancy, but her mother moved in to help out. And by help out, I mean turn my life into a living nightmare. That woman was unbearable. She had no concept of boundaries and seemed to think my money was hers to spend. My girlfriend was already drained enough with all the pregnancy-related expenses. Food, vitamins, doctor visits, baby gear, but now I had to deal with her mom. The woman would waltz into our bedroom without knocking, touch my things, and use my stuff freely like she owned the place. She'd insist on feeding my girlfriend the most bizarre, overpriced health foods. Indian ghee, Ayurvedic powders, and God knows what else. She claimed it was for the baby's well-being, but I swear she was just trying to bleed me dry. I confronted her once, but she brushed me off like I was a fly buzzing around her ear. My girlfriend, bless her heart, didn't have the spine to stand up to her mom. She'd just sit there, silently watching as her mom took over our lives. Meanwhile, my girlfriend had turned into a complete couch potato. She spent her days sleeping, binge-watching cheap TV dramas, and eating junk food. If she wasn't complaining about her aches and pains, she was picking fights with me over the most trivial things. Pregnancy seemed to have given her a free pass to turn into a sloth. I tried to keep things together, but I was losing my mind. Between my demanding job, the endless expenses, and the chaos at home, I was running on fumes. I started spending more time with my colleagues and peers, finding an excuse to stay out of the house. And you know what? It was the best decision I'd made in months. Hanging out with my peers gave me a much-needed escape. We'd grab drinks after work, share stories, and for a few hours I could forget about the madhouse waiting for me at home. It wasn't just about the drinks or the laughs. It was about reclaiming a piece of myself that I'd lost. For months I'd been so consumed by my girlfriend's pregnancy and her mom's antics that I'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe. Looking back, I wish I'd taken more time for myself earlier on. But at the time, I was just trying to survive. The guys I started going out with were my office peers, a mixed bag of characters from all over. We had Filipinos, Indians, Thais, a couple of Americans, and even a few Sri Lankans. A diverse group, sure, but man, they were hilarious. I'd always known they had a good sense of humor, but in the office, things stayed professional. Outside work, though, it was like the floodgates opened. We had a great time. There were endless restaurant trips, car rides filled with laughter, and hookah sessions that often turned into full-blown comedy shows. And of course, there were the bars. Now, I'd experienced the Philippine nightlife before, but doing it with a group of like-minded guys, that was a whole new level of fun. Before anyone gets the wrong idea, no, I wasn't out there trying to relive my youth or misuse my freedom. I was just there to relax and blow off some steam. But let me tell you, I was shocked at how some of my married peers behaved. These weren't guys just sneaking glances or chatting up bar girls for fun. Oh no, they were involved. Buying lady drinks, paying hefty bar fines, taking girls to yachts and hotels. It was like watching a live soap opera. Now, I'm no saint, but seeing this kind of behavior from men with wives and families back home, it blew my mind. The bar girls, of course, were all for it. It's their profession, and they know exactly what they're doing. But the money these guys were throwing around was insane. Yachts? I didn't even know how they were affording them, but somehow they managed. While all this was going on, I'd be sitting in a corner trying to enjoy my beer in peace. But then my phone would buzz. My girlfriend or her mom called to ask where I was, what I was doing, and when I'd be back. And if I didn't answer, I'd come home to tantrums. It was maddening. She turned into this clingy, overbearing mess, and I couldn't recognize her anymore. The woman I'd fallen for had disappeared, replaced by someone I didn't even like, let alone love. This was one of the reasons I started spending so much time away from home. I needed to keep my sanity intact. After all, I had a family to look after soon. And then the big day arrived. My girlfriend gave birth to our son. Now, if you're a father, you know the emotions that come with that moment. Joy, fear, pride, confusion. I felt all of it. Holding my son for the first time was surreal. He was a mix of both of us, with her eyes and my chin. For a few days, my house was peaceful. My mother-in-law actually seemed human for once, and my girlfriend was too busy basking in new mom glory to pick fights. But like all good things, it didn't last. Once we brought the baby home, my mother-in-law switched back to devil mode. She was suddenly too tired and feeling unwell to help with the baby. So guess who got stuck with the night shifts? Yours truly. I'd work all day, come home, and then stay up all night taking care of the baby. Meanwhile, my girlfriend was either asleep or crying about how hard everything was. Our relationship? Non-existent. No hand-holding, no late-night talks, no connection at all. I felt like a walking wallet and a babysitter, not a partner. I finally snapped. I sent the old hag, my mother-in-law, back to the village with some money and a suggestion to make cow dung patties or whatever people do there. I told my girlfriend work was piling up and we'd need to do night shifts. That was my excuse to head back to the nightlife scene. And let me tell you, this time I made the worst mistake of my life. My peers suggested we hit a go-go bar. Now, if you've ever been to one, let me explain. A go-go bar is like a regular bar, but on steroids. The music is better, the atmosphere is livelier, and the girls, next level gorgeous. We walked in and the place was electric. My friends were already surrounded by girls, laughing, drinking, and having the time of their lives. I, on the other hand, grabbed a drink and sat in a corner, trying to avoid eye contact with anyone. But then I felt it. Eyes on me. I looked up and there she was. A Filipina bombshell, mid-20s, with fake blonde hair and a body that could stop traffic. She was almost always dressed in black, and she had this mysterious air about her that made her impossible to ignore. I kept my distance, though. I wasn't there to look for trouble, but every time I visited that bar, which, by the way, wasn't often, I'd catch her staring at me. Eventually, she approached me. Her name was Cherry. We shook hands and she introduced herself as a social butterfly who loved her job. Most days, anyway. She'd been in the profession since she was 18, and she was upfront about why. It paid big bucks. I was intrigued. She wasn't like the other bar girls I'd met. She was confident, friendly, and didn't seem to be playing any games. We started talking more. I told her about my life, my job, and even a bit about my girlfriend. She shared that she loved playing cards, which quickly became our little thing. We'd sit together, play cards, joke around, and have banter that felt refreshing. One thing led to another, and soon I was paying her bar fines regularly, not for anything shady, but just to spend time with her. We'd go for walks, grab coffee, or share meals at restaurants. But let's be real, she was stunning, and I was only human. Before long, we crossed the line. A kiss turned into something more, and suddenly, I had a second girlfriend. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was playing with fire. But at the time, I didn't care. She didn't ask for money, didn't give me sob stories, and even paid for her own taxis. It felt real. 5 months into our secret relationship, she dropped a bomb of her own. She was pregnant. I was stunned. We'd always used protection, but somehow it happened. She even asked if I wanted to terminate the pregnancy, but I couldn't do that. We got tests done to confirm, and sure enough, she was 3 weeks along. We came to an agreement. I'd pay her a monthly allowance to cover her expenses, and she'd stay at her place. It seemed simple enough, and at the time I thought I was doing the right thing. Her mother was thrilled, and Cherry herself seemed genuinely happy. She assured me she didn't want anything more from me, just my company and support for the baby. And so I found myself in a situation I'd never imagined. 2 girlfriends, 2 babies on the way, and a house of cards that was bound to collapse. Let me tell you, juggling 2 pregnancies was the definition of madness. My days revolved around work, buying baby supplies, and keeping 2 women reasonably happy. If that was even possible. My bank account was draining faster than a busted faucet. I couldn't believe this was my life. If you'd told me a year ago that I'd had 2 pregnant girlfriends living under the same roof, I'd have laughed you out of the room. But here I was. And it wasn't funny. It was a nightmare. When Cherry's mom decided to jump into the mess, I should have seen the storm coming. Because this happened to me once, so I should have known this would happen again. If Filipino girls were gold diggers, their mothers were even bigger hoarders. But I was stupid, too deep in the hole I dug for myself. Cherry announced that she was quitting her job at the bar due to pregnancy. Fine, I expected that and respected her decision, and was ready to increase her monthly allowance. What I didn't expect was her mom showing up with demands like she was negotiating a real estate deal. "You need to respect Cherry," she said with a tone that made my skin crawl. "She deserves a proper house for her pregnancy. After all, she's carrying your child now. That rented place is unacceptable." I wanted to scream. Where was I supposed to find the money for a second house? Had I ever claimed I was a millionaire? My savings were already stretched thin with medical bills, baby supplies, and the allowances I was dishing out. But Cherry's mom didn't care. She doubled down, threatening to spill everything to my first girlfriend. The cherry on top? She said she'd go to my workplace if I didn't comply. She was ready to tarnish my reputation at my workplace. I didn't even know this woman 2 months ago, and now she was holding my life hostage. Cherry, who'd always been easygoing, suddenly sided with her mom. "It's for the baby," she said, crying over the phone. "You don't want me or the baby to be unsafe, do you?" Unsafe? From what? A mildly uncomfortable couch? Or chipped paint? It wasn't like she lived in big mansions before getting pregnant. Why were they acting like I was dating a millionaire's daughter? I didn't know what else to do, so I made a decision that still haunts me. I moved Cherry into my house. Yikes, I know what you guys must be thinking. This dude's an idiot. At first, it seemed like a temporary fix. I put Cherry in the other portion of the house, thinking it would keep things peaceful. But when my first girlfriend found out, all hell broke loose. She screamed, she cried, then she slapped me. Yeah, you heard that right. A heavily pregnant woman slapped me, kicked me, and held me by my collar, and called me the most nasty things. I never knew this woman had such a filthy tongue. But I deserved it, and took it all without a word coming out of my mouth. She called her mom, and within hours her mom showed up like a bull ready to charge. They barged on Cherry's door, yelling insults that would make a sailor blush. Black magician, bar girl, witch, home-wrecking demon, the list went on. Cherry wasn't one to back down. She called her mom for backup, and that's when the chaos truly began. The next morning, Cherry's entire family descended on my house. Her uncles, aunts, cousins, everyone showed up like they were auditioning for a reality TV show. My house turned into a battleground. There was screaming, cursing, and even some hair pulling. Cherry's family demanded that since she was carrying my child, they deserved all my inheritance and property. Meanwhile, my first girlfriend's mom was cursing me for ruining her daughter's life. She threatened to make sure I never saw my children again if I don't give my properties to her daughter and child. And Cherry, she was in the middle of the chaos, yelling right back at my first girlfriend. It didn't matter that they were both pregnant, they were ready to throw punches. I tried to play peacemaker, but no one listened. Cherry's uncles even started throwing things. My vase, my lamp, my damn coffee maker. My once peaceful home looked like a war zone. At one point, I seriously considered sneaking out the back door and never coming back. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Cherry's family called the police. They accused me of trying to harm Cherry and her unborn child. They said I was a violent man trying to get rid of her to stay with my first girlfriend. The police didn't care about the truth. They hauled me off to jail like I was some criminal mastermind or psychopath. 3 nights in a filthy cell with rotten food, cold floors, and dangerous men. 3 nights of wondering how my life had spiraled so far out of control. Desperate, I called a colleague from work. I begged him not to tell anyone, but it was too late. My first girlfriend's mom had already reported me to my workplace, spinning some wild tale about how I was a fraud and a cheater and a blackmailer. I wanted to crawl into a hole and never come out. Thankfully, my colleague came through. He bribed the officers and got me released. One officer, clearly tired of the drama, pulled me aside. "Listen," he said, "don't go back to that house. These people are dangerous. They've been threatening to kill you if we let you go. So before they put a case on you and you're bound to never leave the country, pack your bags and run away. Otherwise, these blackmailers will make you fight this case until your last breath, or make you rot in jail forever." That was the wake-up call I needed. I packed a small bag, booked the first flight out of the Philippines, and left everything behind. My house, my job, my savings, and even my kids. I wanted to see my son one last time, to meet my unborn children, but it wasn't worth the risk. Cherry's family had made it clear they wouldn't stop until I was destroyed, and my first girlfriend's mother had also ruined my reputation at work, which meant I was already the talk of Davao City. So I ran. 3 years since, I've seen my son or met my other children. I've started over in a new city with a new identity. I worked a regular job, kept my head down, and avoided women like the plague. Now even the thought of making eye contact with a woman sends shivers down my spine. The thought of ever trusting someone again makes my skin crawl. And I don't want to hurt anyone again either. I've done enough damage and got my punishment. Now life's all about doing a respectable job, save up enough that I could retire with dignity, and live my last days in peace away from liars and hoarders. You know, after years of reflecting on my actions, I've come to realize that my fate wasn't just bad luck. It was the rightful consequence of my choices. I cheated on my first girlfriend, and for that I've paid a hefty price. But let's not pretend that I was the only one at fault here. Both sides played their part in this chaos. My first girlfriend and her mother, they made my life at home unbearable. Constant fights, nagging, and toxic interference turned my once loving partner into a stranger. And let's face it, when peace disappears from home, anyone would look for an outlet. That doesn't make my actions right, but it does put them in perspective. And then there was Cherry's camp. Her mother's ridiculous demands for a house, constant threats, and eventual escalation to calling the police were nothing short of blackmail. I was already supporting Cherry and our child, but that wasn't enough for them. To them, I was nothing more than a walking ATM, and they knew exactly how to push the buttons to make the money come out. And let's not forget the women themselves. They weren't innocent pawns in this game. They were active players. Cherry knew about my first girlfriend, and yet she pursued the relationship, knowing full well the mess it would create. My first girlfriend could have stood by my side to address the issues together, but instead she let her mother run the show. The two of them and their families weren't interested in solutions. They were interested in control. So here's my advice to anyone listening. Stay committed to your partner. If there are problems, talk them out directly with them. Leave third parties, especially meddling family members, out of your personal matters. Trust me, once you let someone else dictate your relationship, you've already lost control. And for God's sake, don't even think about getting involved with a bar girl. I'm not saying all of them are bad people, but the lifestyle they're tied to often leads to complications. You can't even imagine. If you're someone looking for love, find someone with shared values and a grounded lifestyle, not someone whose world is built around fleeting pleasures and financial transactions. Relationships are hard work, but they're worth it if you can find the right person. Just don't do what I did. Don't lose yourself in the process. Whew, that was one roller coaster of a story. Have you or someone you know experienced something similar? Maybe it's a story of heartbreak, betrayal, or redemption. Whatever it is, we'd love to hear it. Submit your story to us, and it might just be featured in an upcoming video. As always, thank you for listening, and remember, stay safe, stay smart, and stay in control of your life. We'll see you next time on Love and Lies Asia.